I'm Jamie Smith. I'm the Chief Information Officer here at University of Phoenix. We have a great speaker today to talk about artificial intelligence. So hopefully you guys have heard of this thing called AI. I don't know. It's like you can't turn on YouTube, the TV, anything anymore about. And I think opinions range from it's the end of humanity to it's going to be the best thing ever, right? The truth is likely somewhere in between. But we are using it heavily at University of Phoenix, and we're taking a kind of a very human-centric approach to it. We're not looking to replace our humans. Our humans are amazing. Almost every student story that we hear talks about how someone was having a dark day and they had that conversation with their academic counselor, gave them the hope to go on, right? I mean, it's tough, as you all know, getting through being a working, adult in this world and having to do college math again and all of those things, right? So we're looking for the AI to help make our humans even better. We call it kind of giving them bionics. So that immediately they know, as well as helping our students throughout their journey from the time they first express interest in the university all the way through into their career journey. So, and very personalized. Like, I think the vision has always been the same. The technology is just kind of caught up to the vision, right? So everybody has that co-pilot with them that can answer any question, help keep them there, help keep them motivated, all the things you do. So we're very excited and very bullish about what this can do for our students and for our university. So let me introduce Lem. Lem comes from BrightEdge, and they're on the frontier of AI. And he's going to talk a little bit about the future as well as the present, because the future's here in a blink of an eye with AI. So thanks, Lem.
Thanks so much, Tim. All right. Thank you so much. And it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And just to kind of expand on what I do, right? So BrightEdge is it's an SEO and AEO platform. So we're helping customers understand how they're performing on search. And now it's AI search. And now it's like AEO, GEO, basically how are companies, brands appearing in ChatGPT, in Claude, and so forth. And so that's what we're doing. And we work with half of Fortune 500 companies. And so we do get a chance to see how the big companies are evolving with AI as well. And so today's presentation, I could talk about a lot of stuff, but I'm trying to make it more practical in terms of the conclusion will be basically what companies should do. And I do want to make recommendations on what you should do personally as well, because AI is here. It's changing lives. And how do you get involved in it? How do you get those aha moments as well? So let me start with some stats here, right? So in terms of people adopting AI, and so some people think it's too high, some people think it's too low. 16% of the global population is beginning to use AI. And this is the connected population. And in the US, we are ranked, I think, number 24. So we're at 28% adoption in the US. Is that too high? Is that too low? What do you guys think? Too low, right? And so there's still a bit of resistance in terms of AI. And so on one side, you have people really adopting it and on the bleeding edge. And the US is on the bleeding edge of AI and inventing a lot of it. But at the same time, the adoption is a bit low. Having said that, in terms of companies adopting AI, it's 88%. And so companies realize if they don't adopt AI, they're going to be left in the dust. And so from a corporate standpoint, it's necessary. But I would say a lot of companies are experimenting and not necessarily scaling just yet. So the statistics show that 38% are fully scaled or scaling. And what that means is 7% think they're fully scaled. They're now an AI company. These are most likely the startups, the smaller companies. Larger companies, I think they're doing a lot of experimentation, trying to figure out how do we make AI work within our corporation. And I think there's a lot of positive results, a lot of negative results. And so I think people are still trying to see what you can get out of it. But it's one of those things where you can't give up on AI because it's kind of a one-way street. It's here. It may not be perfect. There's some good things about it. There's some bad things about it. But I think there'll be some level of usage within companies within our lives. And so I think this one is just to kind of give you the big picture of where we are. And this one just kind of upon that point where the number of functions adopting AI. So it's not just some engineering experiment. It's not some marketing rewrite of content, but it's 50% of organizations have 3+ functions that are using AI. And so this gives you an idea that AI is real. Half of the companies in America are using across multiple functions. And so the takeaway from all this is it's really here. And for companies, it's an absolute necessary thing to do. Um, and even for us, as we work with the Fortune 500 companies across all the various vertical markets, whether it's in pharma, whether it's in financial services, they all realize that even though they have very secure data, they have they want more of a deterministic model. LLMs are probabilistic models. Even then, they realize they need to use it somehow in some way. And so this is basically to encourage you that it's happening and we have to make it a part of what we do. So the AI evolution, right? So it began, 4 or 5 years ago with ChatGPT, and it was the chat models. And I think for the most part today, people are interacting with ChatGPT, right? This one has like 1 billion weekly active users, and people are using it on a regular basis. And it's the chat in and out. Something like 80% of all high school and college students in America use it on like a weekly basis. And so basically, chat models is the most prominent thing. But what's happening now, the reason why the stock markets are going crazy, right? All the software companies are tanking. You have AI investments going through the roof. It's because of agents, right? And when you hear about all the talk about, hey, are jobs going away? It's because of agents. Agents are the things that are beginning to take on multiple um, tasks, more complex tasks, and so forth. And so this is one of the big things that are happening this year. Um, any folks already using agents, Claude Code? Well, that's quite a few of you guys actually. Um, but yeah, it's beginning to happen. But that is probably the biggest thing that's happening in 2026. I would say AI up until the end of 2025 gave companies a boost in productivity on average of I think 8%. And so even if they were really well adopted on AI coding or AI marketing, even then it was somewhere between, I think on average it was like an 8% boost. But basically it was somewhere between 1% and like 25% increase in productivity. But what's happening with agents is we're seeing companies get 800% increase in productivity. This is where the exponential scale is happening. And this is why there's all the real news that's happening. And so, just so I could give you the reality of it, there are different studies that are happening. And basically, what we're seeing with the latest models and with agents, that's where you're seeing the real big boost in productivity. And so I know there's OpenClaw and stuff like that, but this is all within that broader kind of topic of agentic systems. And within that, you have Claude Code, you have OpenAI Codex. You could put OpenClaw within that as well, generically, and so forth. And then the next thing that's going to happen is going to be devices, right? Because we all, live our lives, and we'll drive a car, we'll be sitting in front of the TV, we'll be in the kitchen, basically, and we'll be on the go with our mobile phones. And so devices is where everything is pointed towards. And so that is going to be the big thing you guys will hear a lot about next 12 to 18 months. Everybody is racing towards a device. That's why when you think about why did Apple sink like $10 billion in Apple Car? Because they thought that would be the next big device. Why did Tesla build Grok? Because they realized that people will spend time in their cars, and you want to have an AI system that will work with you. And why is Apple not in trouble, even though they are the great Apple and they flopped on Siri and Apple Intelligence multiple times, and yet their stock price is just fine. And that's because they own the device, right? And even within Google, they reorganized, I think 3 years ago, a lot of the software divisions under Pixel, which doesn't make sense because Pixel is not doing that well as a phone, but they realize having Pixel and Android, you own the device. And so you're going to see a lot of this materialize over the next 12 to 18 months. And OpenAI realizes they also need hardware as well. And so they're investing in a lot of hardware. You have everybody coming out with glasses, whether it's Meta glasses, Apple's coming out with glasses and so forth. So the device is going to be a very big theme in coming months, and probably the next 12 to 18 months, you'll hear a lot of announcements around devices and devices embedded with AI. I bring that up and then I say, well, how does AI understand the world, right? Because it doesn't randomly become smart. It's got to train on real data, right? And so the first thing is web crawling. And so if you think about all the major LLMs, they learn about the world via crawling the web. Just like Google crawled the web in order to build a search index, each one of these LLMs are crawling content. So when you have your businesses, your website still does matter, right? Because that's how the this is how the LLMs understand the world and understand your business. And so putting content out there, building content still does matter because that's how they understand the world. And so web crawling is a very big pillar and a very big component of what that is, right? And then the second piece that's becoming very important these days is MCP servers and skills. I don't know if you guys are hearing about MCP servers, but MCP servers are basically the API for the LLMs. So it's the way in which they could connect to different businesses, to different data sets, and understand what it is, right? So you have web where it crawls it natively, but then there's also a way in which it could connect to your business via MCP. And so you guys might be hearing about this new terminology, but it's a way in which LLMs will talk to each other. And skills is something that Claude has developed. Some people are saying, is software as a service dead or SaaS dead? Is it becoming skills as a service, right? Because a lot of companies are relying on their LLM, whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever it might be, right? Or Claude Code internally. And then what you're doing is it's understanding how to do actions by skills. And so this is becoming a big thing. Right now, it's just in the form of markdown files, which is very techy, but I think that's going to evolve over time as well. A lot of these new technologies, it sounds like it's only for developers, and it really does have developer-centric language, but it's becoming easier and easier, and it's something that everyone will need to adopt pretty soon. Actually, it becomes part of the core skill set of understanding how to navigate. And I do believe they're going to make the tools easier as well. I think it's just these fast releases are coming with developers in mind. And so that's what's happening right now, but I think they will make this easier. But that is the stuff that's really hot these days. And these are the stuff that's coming out like on a weekly, daily basis. And then eventually what's going to happen is training and user input. Eventually there'll be not enough things to train these LLMs on, because it's I think we hit the tipping point about 15 months ago where AI generated data is more than human generated data. It's kind of weird. It's really surpassed that, right? And so as a result, what are the LLMs going to train their data on? And so there's now this whole notion of synthetic data and stuff like that. But eventually, training and user input as people just run their daily lives with AI, it's going to eventually become just training data for AI to take with it and take it to the next level. And so these are some of the things that we see in terms of the evolution of data. Statistics are showing that 29% of companies will use AI agents in 2026. It's a pretty high percentage, actually. But most of that, if you look at the data, is people are just experimenting, right? I think knowing what to do with it, I think it's going to take some time, but a lot of people are experimenting with AI agents. What's happening right now is everybody is in such a rush. I could tell you some Fortune 10 companies took down all their databases because if you give everybody access to, all this AI stuff, you're going to end up just really just tanking your databases and your internal systems. But I think there's such a rush to get on top of it. But I think it's really hard and a lot of people are realizing what's working and what's not working. But what we're seeing is a high percentage of companies are getting into AI agents and experimenting with it. Just to give you an idea of what is an AI agent versus chat, think of it as if ChatGPT was a smart friend, an agent is a personal assistant, right? So ChatGPT as a smart friend, it needs constant human input, right? It answers queries. It's mostly processing text. I know it does audio and videos and visuals as well. And chats are typically stateless as well. But then with the personal assistant, right, with agents, it's becoming quite different. The traits are quite different. They're going to act autonomously. They're goal-based. So you can say, go and make a reservation at this restaurant. So it's going to go and conduct 10 steps in order to book that restaurant reservation. Agents will be able to use tools and APIs, and so they're resourceful. And then agents will execute multiple steps in order to complete a task. And so things to understand, but I think this personal assistant or agent is the important piece to walk away from, where I know most people are on the chat standpoint right now, but I think agents and using that as a personal assistant is becoming really, really important. So how are companies using AI these days, right? So this is one of the big questions in terms of how are people using it and how are people using it correctly, right? And so number one, customer support. This one, I think even Sam Altman, OpenAI, like 4 years ago, called that out. He said that the first thing that's going to do is affect customer support. And so that one, I see just hundreds of companies already doing this because whether it's chat-based support, now you can power that with AI, or it's just the standard support modules, you can provide a broader SLA. So instead of, 8x5, you could say 24x7, or it could be 12x5. And so you could really extend those hours. And basically, AI is really good at helping with that workflow, responding back to people. If there's a knowledge base of ways to cure a problem, it'll go ahead and follow those steps. Second one is internal knowledge assistant, and so this one's becoming really popular, but also a source of why a lot of these databases are crashing. Basically, what companies are doing is loading all their data, whether it's their CRM data, all the call recordings, their internal knowledge bases. It might even be the HR data, their candidate database, and they're pushing everything into a data warehouse. And then basically opening up an internal MCP and then making it easy for employees to access that. And so that's becoming a really big theme where create a big data warehouse for all this data. It becomes very expensive though. But this is one of the common topics that people are doing. And so when you have that internal knowledge base, instead of waiting for an answer, sometimes an employee will have a question. about something, and they'll Slack somebody, and then they'll wait for an answer. Now you've wasted like maybe an hour going back and forth. But then with that internal knowledge base, then you could get any questions answered. And then if it's not answered, you can add that into the knowledge base, and the next time somebody has a question, they could get an answer that way. The next one is back office. Um, I know there's everything from legal. So when legal does contract reviews, they are using it to see, hey, is it different from our standard MSA? What are the differences? What are some of the gotcha? So we know legal teams are using it. HR teams are using it for employment contracts. We know that when there's a month-end close, people are looking to close their month-end close a lot faster. And so accounting teams and back office teams are using it. We know that accounts receivables are using it for collections, and so forth. And so we're seeing a lot happening in the back office space. Sales and marketing. This is an area that I'm near and dear to, but we see a lot of activity on the sales and marketing side and them finding efficiencies using AI. And so whether it's outbound personalization as a prospect to a company, or it's helping fill out an RFP, whether it's building out website content or doing optimization on a website, we're seeing a lot of activity there in terms of using AI. And then finally, and this is probably the most common use case, is software engineering and IT. So the most amount of training data for AI is around code. And so it's kind of interesting because it was built by engineers for engineers, but it's replacing engineers first, actually. So it's kind of ironic, actually. But basically, there's a ton of available code bases, right? Because of open source and GitHub, people push a lot of code publicly. And so as a result, it is getting really, really scary good that if you, with even like a single prompt, you could get AI to go generate an iPhone app. It'll be able to go build a website. It does it really good, does it really quickly as well. And so that is probably one of the areas where there will be disruption, right? So when you hear about in the news, so-and-so company just did a layoff, I think one of the first areas is around software engineering because it's expensive and it's one of those areas in which AI is really good at it. And so that is probably one of those areas that will be disrupted very quickly. All right, so what should companies do, right? And so, and it's basically, I think every company should do AI, but in order to do it, right, what are some of the steps to take? Number one, what I see is there's got to be some sort of owner. I think most companies just assign it to different teams, but eventually it needs to have a single owner or somebody with a KPI in the executive team. And so appoint an executive AI owner and steering committee because somebody needs to care about it. And every time there's an update, they need to keep advancing the ball forward. Number two is have an AI policy because people are just doing it and they are not thinking about what exposure they're creating, what security risks are happening, what compliance they're breaking. And so having an AI policy and having governance is super important. And so I know there's a new ISO framework that just came out, ISO 42001. And then there's other risk frameworks that are coming out, but basically being able to establish that is very, very important. Number three is allocate budget. Like I hear plenty of companies saying, we care a lot about it. I'm like, well, how much money are you spending? They're like, well, a couple of these guys have $20 a month subscriptions, right? That's not going to do it, right? If it's that important, you got to put your money where your mouth is, right? And I think there needs to be real spend from companies into employees, right? To train them, to get them up to speed, to give them all the tools necessary to be successful. And so allocating budget is something that a lot of companies are guilty of saying it's important, but not spending the time, giving employees the time off to go get trained, to get certified. But this one is a very important point because a lot of talk, there's not enough action. Number four is being very intentional about what are some of the high value, high impact use cases that you're going to solve. Oftentimes it's just go AI everything. Well, I mean, that's a little bit too broad. I think being more specific about what are those internal use cases and KPIs is going to be very important. And so prioritizing that is going to be very important. And then number five, redesign workflows and be willing to redesign workflows with AI in mind because AI is very beneficial. It doesn't need to go replace the whole thing, but it can be a part of that process and it could cut down a lot of days of work. And so redesigning workflows so that AI is embedded into real work is a very important point. Number six, train employees. I think this gets into the budget and also just the fact that training employees encourage structured experimentation. And so what we do at our company is we do hackathons. And so basically give them a couple of days, put a prize out there, but we mainly do it so that we do one for R&D and one for non-R&D. And basically we do it for two purposes. One is to get everybody's environment set up for Claude Code and agentic and AI coding. And then the second thing is we want people to all have the aha moment of like they run some AI, it develops something, and everybody has this like, oh my gosh moment of I did not know it could do this. And so once they go through that, they become encouraged and they feel more confident to do more things. Number seven is define human review rules and decision guardrails because it does make mistakes. Like as cool as AI is, it is a probabilistic model and there's a lot of works that deterministic. It is going to make a lot of mistakes. Some areas more than others, but it does make a lot of mistakes still, right? It will get better. It will get better, but it makes a lot of mistakes. So what that means is don't give up on it. When it gives you that bad answer, hallucinated answer, don't give up on it. It's going to get better. But I think it's one of those things where you got to understand that it will make a lot of mistakes. Human review rules and putting that into workflow is actually very important. And then finally, measure ROI. I think within corporations, it's important to think about, what is the return on the investment? What's it going to do to, whether it's like it's going to expedite month-end close for closing the books, or it might be, we're able to pump out more features, close more PRs within R&D, whether it's having broader SLAs within support, having some of these KPIs and these things in mind is going to be very important. So this is the final slide I have here around AI, but my ask or my charge to you all is become familiar with AI, right? I want you guys to all have the aha moment. I think over lunch we're kind of talking about it, and I was thinking about like I personally recommend you guys to get to eventually the Claude Code setup, but one of the easy ways is like one thing I recommend is go to Replit, like Replit, and literally within 5 minutes you could ask it to build a presentation or build an app, and it's free actually, and it's a Replit. Yeah, and just because I want you guys to have the aha moment of what it can do, right? And so just go to the website. It's easy sign up, and I'm not endorsed by them. I'm just basically saying not sponsored by them, but I just want you guys to have the aha moment of like, I didn't know you can build this with AI. And so I think once you do that, you'll start going with it. Maybe that becomes your tool of choice. I personally want you guys to eventually get into Claude Code. It's all terminal access. It feels a little bit nerdy at first, but once you get into it, you'll find that it's not that crazy. But yeah, hopefully there's some takeaways for you guys to take away with. But I do encourage you all to get into some of the AI stuff. All right. Thank you.